Imagine you're walking down the aisle of a grocery store. You've got two shopping carts right in front of you.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. So one is completely empty. It's just rattling along, super light on the linoleum. But the other one is loaded to the absolute brim. I'm talking heavy sloshing gallon jugs of water, giant bags of dog food, just completely packed.
Oh, yeah, the one that's impossible to steer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you give both of them a firm push with the exact same amount of physical force. And, well, we all know what happens next. The empty cart accelerates easily, just flying down the aisle. But the fully loaded cart, it fights back.
It barely moves.
Right, it resists your push with this sluggish, stubborn heaviness. And we casually call that resistance mass. You've dealt with it your entire life. But what if I told you that mass, like that fundamental heaviness of the loaded cart, doesn't actually exist as a physical substance?
Which is a pretty wild thing to claim.
It really is. What if it is completely an illusion, generated by this invisible cosmic ocean that you and the cart are currently swimming through? And, more importantly, what if that exact same invisible ocean concept is the reason you were able to have thoughts at all?
I mean, it sounds like the setup to a science fiction novel, honestly.
It does, right?
But the first half of that premise, the invisible ocean creating the illusion of mass, that's actually the foundational bedrock of modern physics.
Yeah, that's not sci-fi at all.
No, it's established science.
Yeah.
And the second half, applying that exact same logic to human thoughts and experiences, well, that's where we find ourselves standing on the edge of one of the most compelling mysteries of human existence.
Because for thousands of years, we've basically hit the exact same wall.
Exactly. We ask, why does matter exist? Where do our thoughts actually come from? And, why does it feel like anything at all to be alive, rather than us just functioning as unfeeling biological automatons? And usually when we try to answer those monumental questions, we retreat into these very comfortable, very separated corners. Physicists stare at particle colliders. Philosophers debate subjective experience in armchairs.
Right, and neuroscientists are analyzing fMRI scans.
Yeah. And spiritual traditions are talking about universal consciousness. Everyone is holding on to one tiny corner of this massive puzzle, fiercely convinced that their corner is the only one that actually matters.
But today's deep dive is about stepping back to look at the whole table.
Right. We are exploring this fascinating conceptual document called the Architecture of Awareness. And our mission today for you, our listener, isn't to hand down some new scientific dogma.
No, not at all.
We're not claiming we've mathematically solved the universe. We're looking at this framework as a grand, coherent architecture. It's a genuine attempt to take all those isolated corners, physics, neuroscience, philosophy, information theory, and wire them together to see if the lights turn on.
To do that effectively, though, we really have to establish the ground rules of how we're going to build this architecture.
Right, the boundaries.
Yeah, because if you blur the lines between a mathematically proven quantum field and, say, a philosophical thought experiment, the entire structure becomes intellectually unstable.
You just end up with a mess.
Exactly. So the material we are exploring is incredibly meticulous about drawing a hard line in the sand between empirical science, speculative philosophy, and traditional metaphysical modeling.
Which I love, honestly.
We are going to honor those exact boundaries today. We have to start with rock-solid, demonstrable physics before we can even begin to talk about the nature of the mind.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the foundation of this entire architectural model starts with the Higgs field.
It does.
And to really grasp the magnitude of what this framework is proposing about consciousness later on, we have to completely understand what the Higgs field is doing right now, like in the room with you.
The best place to start here is to completely unlearn what you think you know about matter.
Which is harder than it sounds.
Oh, absolutely. For a long time, the classical view of the universe was that it was basically an empty stage. And on that stage, there were tiny, hard, physical building blocks.
Like microscopic billiard balls.
Right, like billiard balls. And the assumption was that some of those billiard balls were just inherently heavier than others. But in the 1960s, physicists like Peter Higgs realized the math of the universe just wasn't working out if that were true.
The equations were breaking down.
Exactly. The equations governing the fundamental forces of nature suggested that fundamental particles, like electrons, shouldn't have any mass at all.
Wait, none?
None. They should be zipping around at the speed of light, never clumping together.
Which would be a huge problem for us, considering, we are made of clumped together particles. If electrons don't clump, you don't get atoms.
Right. No atoms, no us. So to solve this glaring issue, they proposed something radical. They hypothesized a quantum field that permeates all of space.
And it's crucial to understand that a quantum field is not a physical object, right? You can't put it in a jar.
No, not at all. It's not a gas or a fluid. Think of it more like a continuous property of space itself. Unlike a magnetic field, which you really only encounter if you've got a magnet nearby, the Higgs field is turned on everywhere, all the time. It is an infinite, invisible ocean.
And this brings us back to our grocery store aisle. Because every particle in the universe is moving through this ocean.
Everything.
The electrons in your skin, the quarks in that loaded shopping cart, the photons of light bouncing off the floor. They're all traveling through the Higgs field. But the mechanism that creates reality is that they don't all interact with this field the same way, do they?
They don't. The Higgs field is highly selective in its interactions. Photons, for example, the particles of light, they don't interact with the Higgs field at all.
They just pass right through.
Completely unimpeded, which is why light has no mass and can travel at the absolute speed limit of the universe. But other elementary particles like quarks and electrons, they do interact with it. They experience a sort of cosmic friction.
Or like a drag.
Exactly, a drag.
And that drag, that friction, that is what we call mass. I mean, that completely shatters how I used to think about the physical world. I always assumed mass was basically just weight.
Most people do.
But mass and weight are totally different beasts. Weight is just a relationship with gravity. If I take that fully loaded shopping cart to the moon, it weighs a fraction of what it did on Earth.
Right, you could lift it with one hand.
Exactly. But its mass hasn't changed a bit.
Because mass is fundamentally about inertia. It is an object's inherent resistance to a change in its motion.
So when you push that loaded cart, the reason it stubbornly refuses to accelerate quickly isn't because it's filled with some heavy substance.
No, it's because the fundamental particles making up the water jugs and the dog food are interacting very strongly with the Higgs field. They are dragging through that invisible ocean.
Wow.
The mass isn't a thing inside the cart. The mass is an event. It is a relational property that only arises because of the interaction with the field.
It's an event. I love that phrasing. If you take away the interaction, the property vanishes. The framework we're exploring has this brilliant analogy to hammer this home. It talks about baking bread.
Oh, this is a great one.
Right. So imagine you lay out flour, water, salt, and yeast on a kitchen counter. You do not have bread. You just have a pile of ingredients.
And those ingredients alone cannot hold a shape.
Exactly. They don't have the structural integrity of a loaf. What transforms them? Heat. It is only when those ingredients interact with the thermal energy of an oven that chemical bonds form, and the stable structure we call bread actually emerges.
It's a perfect parallel. The elementary particles are the ingredients on the counter. The Higgs field is the heat of the oven.
That makes so much sense.
Without that continuous, invisible interaction, the particles of your body would lose their inertia. They would instantly accelerate to the speed of light and scatter across the cosmos.
Atoms would instantly dissolve.
Chemistry would become completely impossible. Stars couldn't burn. Biological life could never have formed. The Higgs field didn't create the particles out of thin air, but it provides the foundational condition that allows stable matter to exist in the first place.
So I just want you, the listener, to pause for a second. Look at your own hand. Look at the device you are using to listen to this right now. The only reason it is holding a solid shape, the only reason it isn't violently blowing apart into disorganized radiation at this exact second is because it is deeply submerged in this invisible quantum ocean, continuously experiencing friction.
It's established Nobel Prize-winning physics.
It's wild.
But it's empirically true.
But here is the massive pivot. This is where our architectural framework takes that rock-solid foundation and builds a staggering philosophical staircase.
Yes, and this is where we explicitly leave the laboratory and enter the realm of speculative philosophical modeling.
Right, crossing the boundary.
Because the creators of this framework looked at the Higgs field and saw an architectural blueprint, they asked a really brilliant question. If an invisible universal field is required to give matter its physical presence, what is giving human experience its presence?
Right. How do we make the leap from the physics of a shopping cart to the feeling of being, annoyed that someone left a shopping cart in the middle of a parking space?
Exactly.
What makes a thought actually feel like something?
In philosophy, this is famously known as the hard problem of consciousness. It's a term coined by David Chalmers back in the 1990s.
Because we have incredibly detailed maps of the brain's physical machinery, right?
We do. We know which neurons fire when you see the color red. We know which synapses trigger when you taste coffee.
And that's considered the easy problem.
Right, mapping the plumbing is the easy problem. The hard problem is explaining how wet biological tissue and electrical impulses suddenly conjure up the vivid, subjective, internal cinema of actually experiencing the red color or the bitter taste.
There's just this massive explanatory gap between the physical mechanics of the brain and the subjective feeling of being alive.
And the mainstream neuroscientific view, the one we are all basically taught in high school biology, is that the brain is a generator.
Like a factory.
Exactly. It takes in sensory data, turns it around in the meat of the brain, and manufactures consciousness entirely from scratch. You turn the brain on, consciousness is generated. You turn it off, consciousness disappears.
Precisely. But this framework suggests a radically different architecture, heavily inspired by the physics we just discussed. It proposes that alongside gravitational fields, electromagnetic fields, and the Higgs field, there is a fundamental underlying consciousness field.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back on this a bit because my skepticism alarms are ringing loudly here.
Fair enough, go ahead.
If we are saying there's a universal consciousness field, are we suggesting that my highly specific, very personal thought about needing to buy oat milk later today is just floating out in the ether, waiting to be felt?
That's the logical conclusion.
Right.
But
Because that feels completely counterintuitive. It strips away the idea that my thoughts belong to me.
that's a very natural reaction.
Yeah.
But it's based on a slight misunderstanding of what a field does in this model. Let's go back to the physics blueprint.
Okay.
The Higgs field doesn't create the elementary particles, right? It gives them the property of mass.
Right.
Similarly, under this philosophical model, the consciousness field doesn't manufacture your specific thought about oat milk. The field doesn't carry electricity or mass. It carries the potential for subjective awareness.
So the thoughts themselves are something else entirely.
Under this model, thoughts are viewed as informational possibilities. They exist as pure data.
Just data.
The consciousness field is the mechanism that allows that abstract informational possibility to become an actualized, felt experience.
Okay, let me try an analogy to see if I'm tracking this. Let's say I write a brilliant movie script. Right, so I print it out and set it on a desk. The script contains the entire story, all the dialogue, all the emotion. It's a complete informational possibility. But just sitting on the desk, it isn't an experience.
It's just ink on paper.
Exactly. It only becomes an experience when I run it through a projector and shine it onto a screen in a dark theater. The script is the data, but the projector's light is what gives it presence. So, in this model, the consciousness field is the projector's light.
That is exceptionally well put, yes. The field provides the illumination that turns data into an experience. The data of the thought exists, but without the field to interact with, it remains in the dark, entirely unfelt.
But that creates a massive dilemma.
How so?
Well, if consciousness is a universal field and thoughts are just informational data, what on earth is my brain actually doing?
Ah, right.
If it isn't the factory generating the thoughts from scratch, why do I have this 3-pound lump of highly energy-intensive tissue in my skull?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the framework fundamentally redefines human biology. If the brain isn't a generator, it must be an interface.
An interface.
It is a highly evolved biological receiver. Its evolutionary purpose isn't to manufacture consciousness out of nothing, but to tune into it, interpret it, and organize it so that the biological organism you can survive in the physical world.
The document uses an analogy here that I think every single person listening will instantly relate to: the computer and the internet.
Yes, this one is crucial.
Think about how you are accessing this deep dive right now. Let's say you're looking at a web page on a laptop. Intuitively, you know that the entire internet is not physically stuffed inside the aluminum shell of your laptop.
Right, the cloud isn't in the keyboard.
All those petabytes of data, all the videos, all the articles, they don't live in the hardware. Your laptop is simply an interface. It has a Wi-Fi antenna that tunes into a vastly larger network, pulls down a tiny specific sliver of data, and translates it onto your screen so you can interact with it.
And the implications of that shift in perspective are profound. Let's follow that analogy to its logical conclusion. If your laptop screen freezes, or if you take a hammer and physically smash the computer into a million pieces, what have you actually destroyed?
I've just destroyed the interface. The hardware is toast.
Right. But you haven't done a single bit of damage to the actual internet.
Not at all.
The network remains entirely intact. All the data is still there. The only thing that was interrupted was your specific localized ability to connect to it.
Exactly. So if we map this back onto the architecture of awareness, the flow of reality looks incredibly elegant. At the very bottom, you have fundamental reality about the quantum fields and physical matter.
Woven into that, you have the universal consciousness field acting as the medium, the network.
Then you have the brain, which is the biological hardware, the hyper-advanced organic antenna.
And finally, you have experience, which is the output on the screen.
I want you, the listener, to really sit with that for a moment, trying to radically shift how you view your own head. Instead of imagining your brain as this dark, sealed vault where thoughts magically bubble up out of a soup of neurotransmitters.
Imagine it as an incredibly sophisticated biological antenna.
Yes, it is a receiver, constantly sweeping the frequencies, tuning into the reality around you, downloading and interpreting signals.
But of course, if the brain is just an antenna, and the consciousness field is just the Wi-Fi network carrying the signal, that forces us to ask, what exactly is the data?
Right, where is it coming from?
If I'm downloading thoughts, where are they stored?
This is where the framework takes us deeper down the rabbit hole, exploring the idea of information as the fundamental layer of the universe. To understand this, we have to look at how modern information theory intersects with physics.
There's a brilliant physicist named John Archibald Wheeler who comes up here, right?
Yes, he once proposed the phrase, it from bit.
It from bit.
He suggested that the universe isn't fundamentally made of matter or energy, but of information. Matter and energy are just the vehicles that information rides around in.
The framework has a brilliant way of illustrating this. It asks us to track a story through physical transformations.
Like a book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's take the novel, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Dickens originally wrote it with ink on paper, so the physical medium was fluid chemicals on pressed wood pulp.
Very physical.
Right. Later, it was translated into audio, vibrating through the air as sound waves. Today, it might sit on a server as microscopic magnetic fluctuations on a hard drive, just binary code, ones and zeros.
The physical reality of the story, the matter and the energy, has completely transformed multiple times.
But the information itself, the story of Sidney Carton and the French Revolution, it hasn't changed by a single syllable.
The information is invariant.
It survives the destruction of its physical medium.
It persists. And if information can persist independently of its physical medium, the architectural framework suggests that the universe must possess a fundamental storage layer, a repository for all this data.
And to conceptualize this, the document reaches back into ancient metaphysical traditions, doesn't it?
It does. It dusts off a concept known as the Akashic Records.
Okay, I've heard the term Akashic Records before, mostly in like New Age circles. And I'll admit, it usually comes with a lot of heavy mystical baggage.
Oh, absolutely.
People describe it as a literal golden temple floating in a higher dimension, where bearded men in robes are writing down every sin you commit in giant ledgers. It sounds like fantasy.
And the framework is incredibly rigorous about stripping away all that mystical literalism. It explicitly states there is no empirical evidence for a literal spatial library guarded by angels.
Thank goodness.
However, as an architectural concept in a systems engineering model, the Akashic records serve as a highly functional metaphor. They represent an infinite, passive informational repository.
So, an infinite library. A database containing every event that has ever occurred, every mathematical possibility, every thought ever thought, every unwritten symphony, and every memory of every living thing.
It's the ultimate hard drive of the universe.
But the crucial detail the text points out is that a library is completely passive. A library doesn't read its own books. It just holds the data.
Precisely. The data is inert until accessed. But proposing an infinite universal database immediately creates a glaring logistical problem for our biological antenna model.
I can see where this is going.
If this infinite library of all knowledge exists and my brain is constantly connected to the cosmic Wi-Fi, why isn't my mind completely flooded with the entire universe's data at all times?
Right. Why do you only remember your own childhood?
Yeah.
Not the memories of, I don't know, a blacksmith in 14th century France.
Exactly. Why is your bandwidth so incredibly narrow?
Yes. If we are plugged into the matrix, why am I only seeing my tiny little feed? This is where the conceptual engineering of this document really shines for me.
It introduces the mechanics of access.
And it makes a razor-sharp distinction between the awareness plane and the consciousness field. In normal, everyday conversation, we use the words awareness and consciousness interchangeably. We say, I am aware of the dog, or I am conscious of the dog.
But this architecture splits them into two entirely different mechanical functions.
It's a vital separation.
Yeah.
If the Akashic records are the millions of books sitting on the shelves in the infinite library, the awareness plane acts as your specific library membership card.
Let me make sure I'm mapping this correctly. The library has millions of books. My membership card doesn't magically download all those books into my brain the second I walk through the door.
No, that would fry the system.
It just grants me selective access. I can use the card to check out one specific book at a time. So my awareness functions as a highly restrictive filter.
Yes.
It directs my focus. It determines what tiny sliver of data becomes available to my biological antenna, and it intentionally blocks out the rest of the noise so I don't go insane.
That's exactly right. Awareness is the mechanism of selection. But as we established earlier, merely selecting a book doesn't mean you experience it.
True.
You can hold a book in a pitch-black room, you possess the data, but you can't read it. And that is where the consciousness field re-enters the equation.
I see. The consciousness field is the sunlight shining through the windows of the library.
Yes, the sunlight doesn't write the books. It doesn't select the books. It simply illuminates the pages of the specific book you have open, allowing the information to be actually read and experienced.
So, to summarize the stack, information exists permanently in the Akashic library.
Right.
Awareness acts as the filter that selects specific data.
Yes.
And consciousness is the field that illuminates that selected data so your biological brain can experience it.
That is an incredibly clean system. Information exists, awareness selects, consciousness illuminates, experience happens.
But we all know that even with a library card, you don't get access to the whole building.
Definitely not.
There are rare book rooms behind locked glass. There are administrative offices.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The framework takes modern information security principles, the exact same protocols that protect your bank account online, and applies them to the human mind.
What's fascinating here is how seamlessly the language of cybersecurity overlays onto these metaphysical concepts.
It really does.
If the universe operates on a fundamental layer of information, it must have protocols governing access. The document outlines 3 distinct layers of cognitive security: information, language, and permission.
In computer terms, that's data, encryption, authentication, and authorization.
Exactly.
And it makes perfect intuitive sense when you relate it to everyday life, because just possessing information doesn't mean you automatically experience it or understand it. Imagine someone hands you a locked USB drive.
Okay.
You are holding the physical data, but the file is compressed and encrypted. You lack the language, the encryption key to read it. And even if you find the right software to decode it, a prompt might pop up asking for a password.
You need authentication.
You need permission to open the file.
The framework suggests the universe utilizes a very similar authorization protocol for human thoughts, insights, and experiences.
So it's not just a free-for-all.
Not at all. You might be standing in the presence of a profound philosophical truth, or you might be physically near someone experiencing deep grief. But unless your personal awareness plane is authenticated and authorized to access that specific layer of the information field, the data remains entirely encrypted to you.
It just bounces off your biological antenna.
You simply cannot process the signal.
Have you ever read a book in your 20s and you just thought it was incredibly boring and pointless?
Oh, all the time.
But then you pick up the exact same physical book 20 years later in your 40s, and suddenly it is the most profound, life-changing thing you've ever read.
Yes.
The ink on the paper didn't change. The data was identical, but you changed. Your life experiences generated a new encryption key. You finally gained the authorization to understand the data.
The idea that the universe has an encryption system for consciousness is just brilliant.
It is. But it naturally leads to the weird anomalies. What about the moments when that encryption seems to glitch or gets bypassed entirely?
Like what?
We've all had those eerie moments. You are thinking about an old friend you haven't spoken to in years, and 10 seconds later, your phone rings, and it's them.
Or you and your spouse are sitting in silence, and you both suddenly blurt out the exact same obscure thought at the exact same moment.
Right. Does this architecture explain that? Are we talking about telepathy here? Can I hack into someone else's Wi-Fi?
The document is very firm on this point. It explicitly rejects the concept of mind reading.
Okay, good to know.
Mind reading relies on the flawed assumption that the brain is a generator, that I am somehow reaching into your skull and stealing a private thought you manufacture.
Which we've already tossed out.
Exactly. Under this model, since neither of us is generating the thought, there is no private factory to break into. The framework proposes a completely different mechanical explanation.
Resonance.
Resonance, like when a singer shatters a wine glass by matching its pitch. Yes, or even more simply, tuning forks. Imagine two identical tuning forks designed to vibrate at the exact same frequency.
Okay.
If you strike the first one so it rings out, and bring it near the second one, the second fork, even if it hasn't been physically touched, will begin to vibrate and hum in perfect harmony
We synchronize.
through the medium of the air. Applied to our biological antennas, two awareness systems might occasionally, due to deep emotional connection or shared environment, tune into the exact same frequency.
So it's not that I'm reading your mind. It's that our antennas are temporarily overlapping in the information field. We are both walking into the Akashic Library and completely by accident checking out the exact same book at the exact same millisecond.
Precisely. It creates a temporary, localized informational overlap. Now again, we must honor the boundaries of the framework. This remains highly speculative philosophy, not something validated in a physics lab.
Right.
But conceptually, it provides an incredibly elegant mechanical explanation for synchronicity or shared intuition, without having to invent magical, supernatural powers like telepathy. It's just systems engineering, antennas resonating.
But that brings up a really thorny question about the data itself.
What's that?
If my antenna is resonating with the universal field, how is the data actually formatted?
Okay.
We talked about encryption and language. Humans use spoken languages, English, Mandarin, syntax, grammar. Computers use binary code, combinations of ones and zeros.
And our biological hardware, our DNA, operates on a genetic code of 4 letters, A, C, T, and G.
Exactly. So if the universe has a fundamental information layer, what language are the Akashic records written in? Am I downloading thoughts in English?
The framework proposes an underlying Akashic language, but it emphasizes that this language is not composed of words, letters, or numbers.
So no English sentences.
You aren't downloading English sentences from the cosmic Wi-Fi. The Akashic language is proposed to be a language of pure informational relationships.
Informational relationships. What does it actually mean in practice?
Think of it as the raw geometry of meaning, before it gets compressed into the narrow bottleneck of human vocabulary.
Geometry of meaning.
Imagine the profound feeling of nostalgia you get when you smell rain on hot asphalt.
Oh yeah, such a specific feeling.
That experience involves memory, emotion, spatial awareness, and identity, all connecting in a complex, multidimensional web. That web of connections is the data structure. It is a relational geometry.
Okay.
When your biological antenna picks up that specific geometry from the field, your brain then has to scramble to translate it into your local language so you can consciously process it.
Which perfectly explains why our most profound insights like a deep spiritual awakening or an overwhelming moment of love often feel utterly impossible to put into words. We usually say, words fail me.
And under this model, they literally do.
Right. Your antenna has successfully downloaded a massive, complex, multi-dimensional relational data structure. But the linguistic software running on your biological hardware just doesn't have the bandwidth to decode it into a sentence.
Exactly. The translation software crashes because the file is too large and complex.
Okay, let's take a breath, zoom out, and look at the sheer scale of the architecture we've constructed so far.
It's massive.
We started with a universe fundamentally built on invisible quantum fields, like the Higgs field, which give matter its solid physical reality.
Then we move to an infinite library, the Akashic Records, storing all possibilities as invariant information.
We introduced the awareness plane, our selective library card that filters the noise. We brought in the consciousness field, the sunlight that illuminates the selected data.
And we have our brains, acting as biological antennas, tuning into this network through a pure language of relationships and translating it into our daily experience.
It is breathtaking in its scope, but I can hear the listener asking the inevitable question.
How does this help me?
Exactly. How on earth does this help me on a Tuesday? If I have groceries to buy, a stressful meeting at work, and bills to pay, how does knowing I'm a biological antenna connected to a cosmic library actually improve my life?
This brings us to the final and undoubtedly the most practical portion of the document. Here, the source completely shifts gears.
Away from the metaphysics.
It steps away from the speculative metaphysics and moves directly into applied cognitive psychology. The framework argues that if your mind is an interface accessing a vast informational network, you shouldn't just let it run on autopilot.
Right.
You shouldn't sit back passively and just accept whatever random, chaotic signals your antenna picks up. Instead, it suggests you must become an active systems engineer of your own mind. It introduces the concept of the awareness map.
And the central analogy here is brilliant. It asks you to treat your own mind like a complex, growing city.
Think about how a physical city operates. A city doesn't thrive if it's just a random, sprawling mess of concrete. It requires deliberate, thoughtful zoning.
You need residential neighborhoods for quiet living, commercial districts for commerce, industrial zones for heavy lifting, and an efficient road network connecting them all.
If you build a factory in the middle of a quiet suburb, you have chaos. The document proposes that our internal awareness requires the exact same deliberate zoning.
It explicitly outlines 13 specific domains to map out in your mental city.
Things like identity, memory, emotions, beliefs, creativity, imagination.
Intuition, attention, purpose, relationships, skills, knowledge, and values.
So if we treat the mind like a city, identity might be the downtown skyscraper, the core anchor.
Memory is the vast, sprawling archive building.
Emotions might be the weather system constantly rolling over the city, sometimes sunny, sometimes a hurricane.
But let's make this incredibly granular for the listener. Let's say I'm driving to work and someone aggressively cuts me off in traffic. My heart rate spikes, my jaw clenches, and I am instantly flooded with a cocktail of road rage.
We've all been there.
Without this architecture, I am just swallowed by the anger. The weather system destroys the city. How does the awareness map change that moment?
Well, without the map, you identify completely with the signal. You think, I am angry. The antenna is overwhelmed by a negative frequency.
Right.
But with the awareness map, you activate your internal systems engineer. First, you recognize that the anger is just a signal your biological receiver picked up due to a physical threat.
It's just a signal.
Second, you look at your mental city and say, okay, this sudden spike in hostility belongs in the domain of emotions. It does not belong in the domain of identity, and it shouldn't dictate my actions.
You take the chaotic signal and you deliberately route it to the correct zone in your mind to be processed, rather than letting it flood the streets.
You compartmentalize it hierarchically. You say, I am not the anger, I am the city, and a storm is currently passing through the emotional district.
That detachment is powerful. And the source document doesn't just leave this as a neat visualization. It actively combines this city planning metaphor with ancient, established cognitive techniques to make it permanent.
Yes, it specifically integrates the method of loci, which most people know as the memory palace technique.
The memory palace is legendary. It dates back to ancient Greek orators like Simonides of Chios. Before teleprompters or easily accessible paper, speakers had to memorize hours of material.
And they discovered that human brains are incredibly good at spatial memory. We remember locations far better than abstract lists.
So they would mentally visualize a building they knew well, like their own home. If they wanted to remember a speech, they would mentally walk through the front door and place the first topic on the living room sofa.
They'd place the second topic on the kitchen table.
When giving the speech, they just mentally walked back through the house, picking up the ideas.
It exploits the biological hardware's natural strengths. But the framework we're discussing takes the ancient memory palace and upgrades it with modern systems engineering by applying hierarchical indexing.
Like you would see in a complex technical manual or the file directory of a computer operating system. 1.0, 1.1, 1.2.
Let's walk the listener through exactly how to build this. Let's take the domain of memory from the 13 domains.
Okay, we'll call memory domain 2.0. So I close my eyes and I visualize domain 2.0 as a massive, beautiful marble archive building in my mental city.
Correct. Now, you need to store a specific, cherished childhood memory, say, the time your grandfather taught you how to ride a blue bicycle.
Got it.
You don't just throw it in the lobby of the building. You use hierarchical indexing. So inside the memory archive domain 2.0, you take the elevator to the floor designated for childhood, which is 2.1.
Okay, floor 2.1.
You walk down the hall to the room designated for family moments, 2.1.1, and you place the vivid sensory image of that blue bicycle on a specific pedestal in that room, 2.1.1.1.
So I have spatially organized the information by visualizing the room, and I have simultaneously numerically indexed it. I have built a robust, navigable memory architecture.
Exactly.
If I ever feel disconnected from my past, or if I want to ground myself during a panic attack, I can mentally close my eyes, walk into domain 2.0, take the elevator to 2.1, and physically interact with the memory of that blue bicycle.
Exactly. And you do this for everything. You build a district for your values, a skyscraper for your skills, a laboratory for your creativity. You are actively tuning your antenna, organizing the data you download from the consciousness field into a highly functional, secure internal database.
I really want to emphasize why this final section is so critical for you, the listener. What makes this document so remarkable is that it provides a deeply pragmatic, highly effective tool for emotional regulation and intellectual clarity that is completely independent of the metaphysics.
That's the beauty of it.
Let's say you are a hardline materialist. You completely reject the Akashic records. You think the universal consciousness field is philosophical nonsense.
That is entirely fine.
You do not need to believe in the cosmic Wi-Fi to benefit immensely from organizing your own mind like a systems engineer. You can just use the tools, the domains, the indexing, the memory palace to clean up the chaotic sprawl of your own internal city.
It bridges the gap perfectly. It empowers the individual to take absolute ownership of their biological interface. Instead of passively suffering the static of the world, you become the architect of your own awareness.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's zoom all the way out and recap the grand stacked architecture we've explored.
Let's do it.
We started at the absolute physical bottom, hard physical reality, matter. But we learned that the hard stuff isn't inherently solid. It's entirely dependent on invisible quantum fields, specifically the Higgs field, which acts as an omnipresent ocean, generating the illusion of mass through physical friction.
From that physical foundation, we made the philosophical leap to the information layer. We explored Wheeler's It from Bit, realizing that while physical mediums, ink, sound waves, binary code constantly decay and transform, the underlying information persists indefinitely. The story survives the burning of the book.
Which led us to conceptualize the ultimate storage layer, the Akashic Records, an infinite passive metaphysical library holding all possible data, utilizing an underlying geometric language of pure relationships.
But we aren't crushed by the infinite weight of all that universal data because we possess the awareness plane, our highly selective, deeply encrypted library membership card.
And that tiny sliver of selected information is finally brought out of the dark, illuminated, and actualized into an experience through the universal consciousness field.
Which is ultimately picked up, decoded, and organized by the brain. Not a factory generating thoughts from nothing, but a magnificent biological antenna.
Which results, finally, in your daily life, your perception, your thoughts, your memories. And armed with that knowledge, we can use tools like hierarchical indexing and the memory palace to actively design that daily experience, the whole stack. From the subatomic friction of a shopping cart all the way up to a beautifully structured internal city.
This theory of awareness architecture serves as an extraordinary interdisciplinary map. It invites you to stop viewing your mind as a chaotic, unpredictable accident of biology, and instead see it as a structured, navigable space that is deeply connected to the fundamental mechanics of reality itself.
It's a total paradigm shift.
And this raises an important question for all of us to reflect on. Look at how you process your days. Are you letting your mind exist as a chaotic, unplanned sprawl, completely at the mercy of whatever traffic or stressful email comes your way? Or are you actively pulling the permits and designing the architecture of your own awareness?
It fundamentally changes how you look at the world around you. Sitting in traffic, drinking your coffee, getting frustrated at work, it's all just data running through the interface. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Something to let marinate in your newly structured mental city.
Okay.
Throughout this deep dive, we established the premise that the brain is merely a biological interface, a fragile piece of wet hardware accessing the eternal internet of the consciousness field. We also spent a lot of time talking about how to build a highly specific memory architecture, your own uniquely indexed, intricately designed internal city of experiences, values, and identity. So what happens when that biological computer eventually shuts down?
When the physical interface breaks for good and the brain dies.
Exactly. Does your specific, highly curated library membership, that beautifully organized, utterly unique architecture of identity you spent an entire lifetime building, just dissolve back into the infinite, undifferentiated noise of the Akashic Library? Or does the unique structure you've built, your perfectly indexed city of reality, remain completely intact, encrypted, and forever accessible in the fundamental informational layer of the universe? Just a little something to think about the next time you push an empty shopping cart down the aisle.